Wednesday, April 19th on the Just Baseball Show. It is the mailbag where we answer all of your questions, whether that be from our Twitter at justbb_media or our Instagram at Just Baseball Show. We do this every other Wednesday. Arm and I hop on the mic and answer all of your amazing questions that you left for us on those social media pages. Make sure, if you want to be featured on the Just Baseball Show, to leave your questions when we drop the little mailbag post. It's kind of rudimentary, but it works, and we get hundreds of questions. They're all awesome. We wish we could get to all of them, but we have 7. We are going to do a little kind of look at the odds of BetMGM, right? Because weirdly enough, dude, we're 10% through the season so far, which is insane. I feel like it just started 8 minutes ago. So we're going to look at some division odds, see if there's any value, answer some questions. But first, Hunter Greene gets hit on the leg in a start against the Reds, for the Reds on a start against the Rays. And you know what the Reds do? You're fine. We're going to give you 6 years, $53 million. What was your reaction, Arm, to the extension?
I think they just felt bad. They had like a boo-boo. They wanted to make him feel a little better, but no, it's awesome. It's good when the notoriously cheap and frustrating teams extend their young stars. And while it's only 2 years on top of the years of control, so it'll be 1 more year of control and then a club option after that. So it buys the Reds 2 more years. It also gives Hunter Greene some much needed, financial stability, I think that all these players need to have in the early going of their career, especially someone like Hunter Greene that's dealt with some arm issues in the past. I think some people might look at the deal and say, oh, wow, that baseline is really cheap, but it has escalators that bring it up to 90+ million. And I think it's a fair contract given his injury history. When he's healthy, he's fantastic. He's been pretty healthy over the last couple of years overall. He's had just some small flare-ups, but it's just good to see the Reds start to lock up the core because we've talked about their talent. They're getting there. Start to identify the pieces that are part of your future and lock those guys up. So that's exciting for Cincinnati, and hopefully Reds fans have something to be happy about.
And I hope they lock up Nick Lodolo, even though, as we're speaking right now, 6 earned runs against the Rays. It's all right. The Rays are crazy. Yes, he just gave up 6 earned against the Rays, and we're like in the 3rd inning, so that could be a tough start. But he's a guy you have to lock down. Graham Ashcraft is a guy you have to lock down. One more good news, and then we're going to get to 2 things that are rather shitty, to be honest. So the first one, well, we already talked about Hunter Greene. The second one, Mason Miller of the Oakland A's. The sun is shining in the Bay Area for once because Mason Miller is a freak, and the A's just vaulted him up because he already looks like a big leaguer.
Yes. And he was a guest on the call up. I highly encourage anyone to go listen to that podcast. That was before the season. Miller has one of the coolest stories, which is going to be featured on justbaseball.com. Actually, right now, by the time you're listening to this, the feature story I wrote in my conversation with Mason Miller is up. And he didn't find out, I won't bore you with all of it because we got a lot to talk about here, but he didn't find out that he was a type 1 diabetic until his sophomore summer at Division III Waynesburg. He had a 7 ERA through his first 2 years of Division I baseball, was down 30 pounds, and was like, what the heck is going on? I don't feel good. I don't feel right. And it wasn't until he had an internship with a health office somewhere where he had to provide a urine sample where they were like, hey, do you know that you're diabetic? And he's like, what? So that's how he found out, treated that, and then all of a sudden starts throwing upper 90s. So it's an awesome story, but now you're seeing him at the big or at the minor league level professionally. He looks insane. I talked to a couple guys that faced him recently in AAA who said best fastball I've ever seen. And they told me that a couple big leaguers on that team that are now down in AAA said it was the best fastball they've seen, and they were playing in the big leagues not long ago. So that says a lot about Mason Miller. More on him in that story. But if you have some free time tonight, as you're listening to this episode, mark your calendar, your schedule, watch that A's game. I don't know. He might have some growing pains in his first start, but he's 102 with life. And that's fun to watch no matter how well he pitches.
And we do this a lot, right? And we got a comment on Twitter when we started the mailbag where you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean us three, you, Jack, and I, we talk about prospects, we glow about them, right? Like they're next up, that we'd take them over the vet. And in some cases, and you laid it out in the comment, like some cases, we truly do think that the prospect is better right now then the veteran, right? Matt
Yes.
Mervis with the Chicago Cubs, even though Hosmer's having a pretty good start. You gave other examples too. But I think this is the best example
Yeah.
of when a prospect is legit going to be better than the rest of the
Yes.
rotation, when we're looking at James Caprillion, Shintaro Fujinami, who did kind of pitch well against the Mets out of nowhere, JP Sears, who also pitched pretty well against the Mets. And then you got other arms like Ken Waldichuk, and we can go through the line. But this guy, Mason Miller, might be the best pitcher on the Oakland A's staff right now, right?
Which is awesome. And that's why I'm glad they're calling him up. 28 innings in the minor leagues plus the Arizona Fall League. Not a lot of action, but I don't think you need to see much more. It's 100 to 102. It's a plus breaking ball. He added a cutter at 95, which he actually said on the call up. That was like his kind of announcement of the pitch. He's like, yeah, I've been playing around with this cutter. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Tell me about this cutter. So he starts talking about the cutter, and he's like, yeah, it's 95. Like, I think it can make me special. And I was like, well, it's making him special. He looks really good. And then he's got the feel for the changeup. It's about the health for him. His shoulder, he had a little bit of a shoulder strain last year that cut his season short. But if he's healthy, my goodness, he could be special. And I'm glad that the A's are being aggressive with him.
Speaking about health, two bad things in the American League East. Number one, Jeffrey Springs. Tommy John will be out for the season. We actually, not like we broke the news, but I heard the news when I was streaming on Twitch on our Not Gambling Advice show, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And we hear in the chat, Jeffrey Springs, TJ, Jeffrey Springs, TJ. What happened to Jeffrey Springs? And I look, MLB trade rumors, Jeffrey Springs out for the year, will get Tommy John surgery, which I had an immediate reaction of, that stinks. Like, that is a killer, because this guy, by a lot of metrics, was one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Such a
The
cool story.
Rays don't just extend anyone, right?
No.
And they extended Jeffrey Springs before this season began, and he showed why the Rays loved him so much. Electric left-hander. There was times where I was watching some Jeffrey Springs starts, and I was like, wow, Shane McClanahan's the second best lefty on his own team, even though he's one of the best lefties in baseball. That's how well Jeffrey Springs was pitching. So unfortunately, Tommy John for him. And then Giancarlo Stanton. It's a tale as old as time, unfortunately. 6 weeks, grade 2 hamstring strain. And 6 weeks, yeah, right. It's going to be 8. Like, he'll be back in the middle of June. You know, I'm on the phone with my dad, a huge Yankee fan, and he's like, when do you think Stanton's going to come back? And I'm like, who cares? October. That's all we need him for. Like,
Yeah.
And he was surprised, right? My dad was surprised. And I'm like, how can you be surprised at this point with a guy like Stanton,
Dude,
where it's every year, it's continuous. It's just, when is it going to happen? It's unfortunate. He's a great talent, but like, this is kind of the story of his career at this point. It's just, he plays really well, bang, he's out. And then it's rehabbing, and then we're back, right?
There was some years with the Marlins through his prime where he was in the middle of some awesome campaigns, and a Marlins team that like desperately needed him. He was MVP with the Marlins, and when they were hanging around the wild card, he'd go down, and then the team would kind of just fall apart. And it sucks, because if he's been on the field as much as some of the other guys, you know, over the last 10 years, he'd be pushing towards a lot of really exciting milestones. And he still has a shot to crack those milestones. But I agree with you, like the hamstring, that lingers, especially for a guy like Stanton. And I think he's almost just too much of a beast. Like, he's too muscular and just too strong, where his muscles just go from time to time, which sucks. On the spring point, I'm very happy that he got his bag before this year. That part is at least a nice silver lining. And it is at least just Tommy John, which is just, to me, it seems like more of just like this. It's like this paid vacation now, where
just
it's like
Tommy John. That's what we've gotten to as a.
It's really at that point.
It's not that bad anymore. I mean, you're out for the season.
It's just the duration. It's how long it takes that sucks. But in terms of like, if you told me, you know, shoulder strain, like 2 shoulder strains that come up in the same year, or Tommy John, I think I'd rather have the Tommy John, because the shoulder strains don't seem to go away, and it usually points towards something else. Tommy John, a lot of times these guys take care of it and then they're good to go. It almost seems like a foregone conclusion for most pitchers. A lot of them get it out of the way earlier. And again, I hope humans like evolve to not need UCLs anymore, but wishing Jeffrey Springs a speedy recovery. And the Rays, the good news for them is next man up. They'll bring somebody else back from the IL like a Glass now. And then I think we'll see a lot more Taj Bradley, who pitches tonight as we're recording this.
And we're speaking about the Rays, so that leads us into our first question of the mailbag. The current Rays infield is solid with Yanni Diaz, Brandon Lau, Wander Franco, and Isaac Paredes, with Taylor Walls as the third middle infielder who is already doing well off like Nick Lodolo, kind of a lefty killer. With Curtis Mead, Manzardo, I don't even know who this is. You correct me, Basabe?
Yeah, Slevis Basabe, who I actually love. That was the guy that we hyped up a lot on the Rays prospect rankings. But yeah, Basabe is an infielder as well.
Perfect. And so the question is, what is the infield looking like in August if everyone is healthy? That comes from us from at Todd Bernius, Bernius on our Instagram. So Arm, this is a perfect question for you. I mean, with the way the Rays are playing, as good as these young guys are, it would be nice to see Curtis Mead, Manzardo, and Basabe. But at the end of the day, like, who are you taking out of that infield?
That's the thing, man. Manzardo is off to a phenomenal start, but I think he's somebody that has a little bit more time. Mead is actually off to a slow start, so that helps a little bit in terms of the logjam. And then Basabe is awesome. Really, really good bat to ball guy. He's a plus hitter, potentially a plus hitter, and he's actually hitting the ball harder than people expected. But I still think of him as like this second base or infield utility type. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't think we're going to see any of those guys until somebody gets hurt. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I think if somebody gets hurt, then we'd see probably one of those guys. I guess it depends on who gets hurt, because I think they're all pretty equally ready. I'd say Basabe might be the most ready given his bat to ball skills and versatility. But like you said, Peter, who are you booting? Even Isaac Paredes has been swinging it well. I don't really know who you would remove from this lineup. And Taylor Walls just took Nick Lodolo deep. And I think he just picked up like a double the next at bat. Like if Walls is swinging it too with his defensive ability, like who are you bumping? I'm very interested to see what they do. I'm actually floored by what Taylor Walls' numbers are actually entering today. I don't think you do anything. I think it's similar to the Orioles situation that we're going to talk about. Like you kind of just sit on them.
Potentially a trade, right? You could
Maybe.
potentially look at one, maybe get some outfield help. Like Randy has got it locked up, but then you have Josh Lowe and Manny Margot, and it's not like they need help there, but potentially could a Brian Reynolds trade be in the cards? It never happens with the Rays. It's so out of the ordinary for them. I'm just thinking of ways to be creative here because they have such a glut of incredible players. But then again, everyone on their major league roster is incredible. They're just an incredible team. So I guess let's just move on to our second question, and it's a good one. Out of the surprise teams that have started hot, and the three listed were the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Chicago Cubs, which team do you think can have the most sustained long-term success? That was asked by at Riley _MCELWAIN2 on Instagram.
That's a really good question.
The crazy thing is, I don't know if there's a wrong answer here. But all are off to great starts. The Cubs are near the top of the division. If it weren't for the Brewers being 12-5, one of baseball's best records, the D-backs look like they have an outside shot at making the playoffs. That's how good they've been. And then you have the Cubs, who just continue to win games, go into Los Angeles. Great series against them. These are three teams that are massively overperforming expectations. I would say the Pirates have overperformed the most, even though I think the Cubs and the D-backs are playing better baseball. But we thought the Pirates might be bottom dwellers, and they're anything from it. So who's your choice, I guess? Because there really is no wrong answer. It's more of a thought exercise.
Yeah, I would say let's walk through this together because I want to see where you're at. D-backs was a team I have a little bias towards just leading into this because that was a team I liked better going into the season. So there's going to be some confirmation bias on that performance. The Cubs, the thing with them is we didn't really account for Cody Bellinger looking like this. Yes, it's only a dozen games, but if Cody Bellinger's swinging it like this, then the Cubs look a lot different. Then you're going to swap out Eric Hosmer, who's probably been now after the good 5 games to start has slowed down. Like you swap that out for one of the best offensive prospects right now in baseball, and Matt Mervis. That helps bolster your offense. They're going to get Seiya Suzuki, really rolling again for them and just got him back in the lineup. Like this team is going to get better. The pitching is a little bit of a concern. We'll see how that holds up. But they've got Dansby Swanson. They've spent money. They've got a little bit more star power on that team. The D-backs are younger and more volatile, but also I think are more balanced across the board, if that makes sense. Like you're leaning on performances from guys that are less established, but guys I believe in. So I'm going to say D-backs. Wouldn't surprise me if it's the Cubs, but I'm going to say D-backs because they're doing this right now with like Mad Bum pitching. You swap him out for Brandon Pfaadt. I think Corbin Carroll is going to be one of those guys who just gets stronger as the year goes on and gets better and better. Longo looks good. I like the whole team, and that's without Moreno really getting going. I think a lot of the pitching staff's still going to get better and better. Bullpen's a concern, but I think a bullpen's concern for almost any of these middling teams.
And Andrew Chafin has been that dude in the back end of the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen. And a guy who I think is becoming maybe one of the most underrated players in all of baseball, that's Josh Rojas. A guy can play all over the field and is a really good hitter. He is just like, he's one of those guys who, you know, kind of doesn't get talked about because we talk about all these young, exciting guys on the Diamondbacks. And it's like him leading the way consistently. Guy like Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Christian Walker, Ketel Marte, they have a lot of good players. And then the emergence of Dre Jameson is another arm. You know, Ryan Nelson is a good arm. Then you have Zach Gallen, who can lead any staff in Major League Baseball with his stuff. We saw him dominate the Miami Marlins. We're going to talk about that trade in a little while. They are the most exciting team. And I think one aspect of the Diamondbacks that, again, goes a little bit underreported is that I think they are one of the teams that benefits the most from these new rules, right? They're a scrappy team that likes to put the ball on the ground, and that helps with no shift, bigger bases, you know, the pickoff rules. They're stealing bases like nobody's business. This is a fast, exciting team. And they play really good defense too. Like we talk about Alec Thomas in center field, Corbin Carroll in a corner when he could be an elite center fielder. You know, Geraldo Perdomo is not the best, you know, hitter, but he can pick it at short. And that's the reason why he's in the bigs. Christian Walker, Gold Glover, Josh Rojas can play all over the infield. Ketel Marte and then Gabby Moreno. Like this team is set up perfectly for this new age of baseball. And we're gushing over the Diamondbacks, shouldn't take away from the Pirates or the Cubs either. Like all three of these teams, that's why it's such a good question and there is no wrong answer, is because they're all set up really nicely. So the Cubs are out overperforming, and this isn't even the Cubs window yet. They have all these great prospects that you and Jack talk about ad nauseum. How about the Pirates? They're going to get Dylan Cruz. O'Neal Cruz isn't even playing in their winning games. Like all three of these teams, if you are a fan, I would be very excited right now. Like this is a great question.
Yeah, 100%. And real quick, just to highlight the Pirates, I mean, to get what they're getting from McCutchen, I hope he does it as long as possible because it's so awesome to see him performing in a Pirates uniform. But, you know, just to see what Brian Reynolds is doing, I know he's come down to earth a little bit, but that's been really solid.
I mean, he came down from hitting a home run every single day.
From literally every single at bat. Yeah. I love G1 Bay. I think he's going to continue to get going offensively, but they've got a lot of pieces that I think are contributing and can serve their role pretty well. And I think the pitching's held up better than people thought. I do think they're going to slow down a little bit, but I think the final answer is D-backs, but all these teams I think are going to be much more watchable than a lot of people might have expected, especially many of their cynical fans, specifically on the Pirates side.
This is a perfect question for you. And we are going back to the Rays, but this question isn't about the Rays. So question number 3, if the Rays are the model for developing pitching, which teams do you consider the leaders in hitting development? What a fascinating question, because while the Rays are the leaders, you'd say, but like the Dodgers are pretty damn good at it in terms of developing pitching. The Guardians are pretty damn good at it. The Mariners, right? Bringing up George Kirby, right? They got Bryce Miller coming in the minor leagues. Like Emerson Hancock looks good. There are a lot of teams at the forefront of this, and I'm sure there are a lot of teams at the forefront of offense for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot that goes into it because I think it's measurable by how many guys did you draft or trade for in the minor leagues, and then of course develop into big league pieces. But also it's just kind of looking at it anecdotally from player to player and saying like, okay, they took this guy that was struggling and really helped him kick it into another gear, or this guy was pretty good and now he's just hit another stride. And then there's also like the question of, is it scouting or development? Because some teams are really good at both. Some teams might be better at one than the other, and you don't know because the other kind of masks the other. But I think the Astros have to be up there. I might put the Astros at number 1 just because of the fact that you look at their roster roster top to bottom right now, and you look at their team, a lot of those guys are homegrown. And then even guys that they didn't specifically sign, they developed. Nobody thought Yordan Alvarez was gonna be what he is, and look at what he developed into. They traded for him at the lower levels. Yeah, Bregman was a top pick, but he's hit his ceiling. Jeremy Pena was a development masterclass from what they've had there. You look at Kyle Tucker, who hit some snags at points. People were wondering whether he was going to hit his ceiling. He does. And then you've got the tweener types like a Chas McCormick, who gets better and better and better and turns into a really solid option for them. So for me, it's got to be guys like that, because then you even get the role players like David Hensley, who turn into valuable or at least somewhat productive bats for them. I'd say that the Astros are right there. The Cardinals are in the same boat when you get the Lars Nootbaars of the world, the Tyler O'Neills who you trade for and then unlock more out of him. And then a lot of the other guys we could talk about, obviously Jordan Walker's development. You see other guys that are really doing well. But I think the Astros have to be the gold standard. I also think the Yankees don't get enough praise. They do a really good job of getting the most out of their bats, especially guys that have come through the minor leagues. Anthony Volpe, one of the best examples, but even Jason Dominguez, the changes he's made, the improvements he's made, Oswald Peraza, and then guys at the big league level, Aaron Judge, hello. That's not a guy that like just rolled out of bed and hit. That took some work.
At the end of the first round out of Fresno State.
Like, and he looked terrible. Like his swing, I saw some video on the Cape, I was like, geez, would not have taken this guy. So, I think the Yankees are a dark horse in that as well. And then of course the Dodgers.
Of course, because the Dodgers are just the answer kind of for everything about the gold standard. And then how about just another guy with the Yankees? Spencer Jones is a guy who's flying up prospect lists. And he was a guy who I was like, oh, wait, we're taking him in the first round. And now it's like, well, he might have gotten number 1 overall if we redid that draft based on how good he's been. So question number 4, Cardinals fans are pissed, and I understand. And this next question is, the Cardinals pitching seems to be getting worse. That's the start of the question. Good thing we have Grandpa Wayno making his rehab start. They need to be 83-65 for the rest of the season to get to 90 wins. Do they do it, or are they throwing out another year of really nice offense? This was asked by Seth Partney on Twitter. We're talking about the Cardinals ad nauseum, dude.
Before you say anything, a fan base is in shambles when they're doing the math of what they need to do to get to 90 wins. That will always make you feel like shit as a fan. I promise. We're 10% into the season, like Peter said off the cuff. No matter what, if you do the math to how you get to 90 wins after a slow start, you're going to make yourself miserable. Don't do that. And also, they can very easily go 83-65. But anyway, Peter, the floor is yours.
I mean, the question at hand is, what do they do, right? Like, the question at hand is more, do we think they have it in the tank? And Cardinals fans are looking for some optimism. And I can be optimistic about Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty,
he looked good last start.
His command hasn't been there, but guess what? He's fixing it, and he's getting better. And this is a guy who we can't forget in 2019 was one of the better pitchers in the National League. And it's not like he looks unhealthy. Yeah, he had some command issues early on, but he's got this new fastball that looks really good. His slider looks sharp. Breaking stuff looks good. They got Libby coming up from the pipe, and like, we'll see, could be another rookie who ends up not being what we might think. But you and Jack have talked about the
Jack's calling a game. Jack's calling a game with him on the mound right now as we record.
Amazing. So we'll have, a recap of how that went, and we'll talk to Jack because I know Cardinals fans are looking for pitchers. And what I do know is, if you are a team in need of pitching, the Cardinals are in the best spot to make a big time trade. They have so many young hitting prospects. Now, we've talked about this ad nauseum because they just ain't doing it, right? Yeah. They did trade Harrison Bader for Jordan Montgomery. So it's not like they're, allergic to doing stuff like that. They brought in Jose Quintana. They just haven't brought in the all-time ace that Cardinals fans are looking for, that they want to hang their hat on and say, every fifth day we can give this guy a ball and we should win the game. And that's what you need as a World Series contender, is that type of starter. Now, Could they make a deal with the Marlins for Sandy? Of course they might be able to, but we're grasping at straws with that one. It's really
Yeah, it's
tough.
not gonna happen.
We have to wait for the season to continue to unfold to really see who could be available. Because the Marlins are playing good baseball right now. Why would you
Yeah,
want to trade Sandy if you're
they wouldn't do it.
competing, right? Like you're
They
not going
wouldn't
to
do it.
get Gallen from the Arizona Diamondbacks. You're not going to get like DeGrom from the Rangers. Like, I mean, it's tough right now. We could come up with random options just to get people excited, but we have to wait. But Flaherty looks good. Waino's going to come back. Then you have Libby. It's not like Monty's pitching bad. And like Michaelis can't be any worse, right?
Michael's legit can't be worse. My thing too is what if they took a Twins type approach? You're not going to be able to go get an ace. Go get a couple threes. I think Jamont's pretty much a 3. You went out and got him. Quintana, once he comes, once he gets going, like that was a guy that I liked that pickup. Is that a 3? I don't know. But now that they subtract him, right now they're looking at what they have here. I feel like you're not going to get an ace. You're not going to be able to get that frontline guy, any of the aforementioned guys that you just listed. Maybe you just go for a few threes and build that rotation of threes. I think Jack Flaherty at his peak, what he's looking like now, could be a solid 3. Jamont could be a solid 3. Waino is probably a depth arm, but shows flashes of being a solid middle rotation arm. Don't you think they're kicking themselves right now for not getting Pablo? Like Pablo Lopez, they could have done Tyler O'Neill plus a prospect or 2 and got Pablo Lopez. I feel like
they could have done Dylan Carlson. They could have done Dylan Carlson in pieces like not that long ago, and they decided, no, we needed a 7th outfielder. No, we need him. We're not going to go get Pablo Lopez. But with this said, and this is why, on lives, in my comments, I'm sure in yours DMs, Cardinals fans are freaking out, and I know. But if you're going to be a team loaded with threes, the Cardinals, if you look at the rest of the team, it's the perfect team to have a bunch of threes. You have an unbelievable offense. You have an unbelievable defense. You have a very solid bullpen. So all you really need is guys like Quintana. Now, you're not going to get him anymore because he's on the Mets, but guys like that, they will open up in the trade market. Even a guy like German Marquez from the Rockies, like maybe could you get him? He turns into some sort of 3-4. That's another arm that you could go get. Like, we're going to keep talking about this. This is, I feel like one of the big stories in Major League Baseball right now is that there's such a difference right now in talent. Like you look at the offense and you look at the starting staff, but it's so early. So it's like, what, you want me to freak out with you, Cardinals fans?
So here's the thing. And it's frustrating because of how good they are position player wise. And because the clock's ticking, you're not going to, Nolan Arenado is not getting any younger. Neither is Paul Goldschmidt. So I get it from that perspective, but they've got a lot of time to figure stuff out. One, Liberatore could come up and be a legit starter. Obviously that's a tall ask, but it's possible. If that's clear that that's not going to happen, he struggles when you call him up, and Michaelis doesn't get any better. You're not getting anything from Matt. Like I think you got to wait, finally get all of those answers being the worst case scenario, and then from there you panic and you go, pay $1.20 on the dollar. Like that's what they'll end up having to do. My question to wrap up on this is, do you give up a big prospect package, or do you just trade Tyler O'Neill plus a prospect or 2 if there's a team that's looking to do that kind of deal? Because I feel like O'Neill, it seems like he's probably going to be somebody that's going to be the odd man out ultimately. He's got 1 more year of control after this year. I think this is kind of the perfect time to trade him, especially with the little spat we had recently. But I don't know. I just get the sense that his days might be numbered. Carlson has more control. They don't like trading prospects. Maybe you trade an O'Neill and a prospect or 2 for a team that, wants a player that can add to their lineup. That might be an interesting way to upgrade. But yeah, that's not going to get you an ace, but it could get you a middle rotation arm.
2 reasons I love that option from you. One, if you trade Tyler O'Neill, you can get a good starter from a contender. right? A contender that has a bulk of pitching that needs offense. They're not trading for that high A 19-year-old with upside, right? You're getting Tyler O'Neill. He could help right now. Like kind of that Luis Arias trade for Pablo Lopez, kind of in that same breath, where you get a Pablo back and you give up a major leaguer. Both teams want to contend. They don't want prospects. So that for Tyler O'Neill. Second reason, the contract thing is big, right? Because he only has more year of control. So unless you're going to give him a big extension, which you see all the different guys on offense that the Cardinals have, are you going to give him a big time deal? Might as well cash in on that. So I think this is a perfect time to transition to a segment sponsored by BetMGM. Remember, use the King of Sportsbooks, BetMGM, in our episode description. There's a code, JB Fans. That's JBFANS. You wager $10 for all new users on BetMGM, you get $100 instantly. No brainer, right? I say this on my TikTok all the time. Always take the free money that the books are giving you. Even if you're not much of a bettor, it's fun to throw $1, $2 bets when you have some free money to play along with. So download BetMGM, the King of Sportsbooks. The link is in our episode description. Use code JBFans. And the reason I really want to go to this now is I want to look at the National League Central odds to win the division, because the Brewers are 12-5. The Cardinals haven't gotten off to the best start in the world, and the Brewers are minus 130 to win the division now. They are the favorites. Cardinals are plus 160. Cubs are plus 750.
Whoa.
Talking about all this, I was thinking about making a move on the Cardinals at this point. Now, my gambling brain says you knew that was a trap line at the beginning of the year where they gave us minus 115 for the Cardinals. You know, what a steal. But now at this point, it's like, do I go back in on the Cardinals? That's excellent value for them, at least in my opinion, considering the line move. And it's like an overreaction to the Brewers doing so well. Brandon Woodruff, on the IL for an extended period of time. Corbin Burns isn't pitching his best either. Like maybe the Cardinals at plus 160 is a decent bet. You bet 10, you win 16. You bet 100, you win 160. Like that's good value on the Cardinals.
Well, and a team that we talked about how they're going to be patient and probably not rush anything. They have a get out of jail free card with a litany of minor league talent if they want to push the chips forward. And of course, even excess outfielders at the big league level. When you have teams that have resources like that are in win now mode, I'm always a little bit more confident laying some money on them. So I didn't like them at that minus anything to win the division, but now at that value, if you're getting free credits, like I'm going to bet on the best franchise and still the most talented team with that free credit to throw on there. That I think that's 100% worth like a unit splash, and you get to root for a good team to turn it around. It's a long season. And if they get hot, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like Jack and I just talked about, we're a little worried about what the Woodruff injury means. It could be out for basically majority of the season. He said himself, he's not going to rush back. And, the Cubs, they look good. I think they're going to hang around, 500 and be a competitive team and exceed expectations, but that's not going to be what wins the division. So it's really Cardinals versus Brewers, and you're hoping the Brewers can hold on, given their ace struggling, having a lot of issues before the year with the team. And then their number two now being out for a long time. No Ashby, a lot of other moving parts. I really like that value there.
And I'm not saying it's crazy, but there is value on the Cubs here. I mean, the Cubs are playing good baseball considering they're plus 750. If we talk about the Brewers' issues, let's say the Cardinals don't solve these issues and the pitching does go down the drain. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe considering that they're plus 750, I also think that's somewhat worthy of a sprinkle. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But sometimes, Laura, I gave out to my subscribers, Bears to win the division in the NFL. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. But the fact is that they were the farthest down. They have the most cap space. They have they trade the number one overall pick. They have a ton that they can do. And the Jaguars went from worst to first too, right? So it's a value play. And plus 750, I just think that's too high for the Cubs considering problems within the other team. One more race that I want to talk about with you, Aram, is this American League East, because there's a cluster at the top. And I'm curious, as we sit here today, which team you like, because the Rays are plus 130, the Yankees are plus 180, and the Blue Jays are plus 275. I'm jumping for joy. I got the Rays at plus 350 to win the
Yeah,
division.
that was a
So
sick
I'm feeling good right now. But at the same time, like, you never know, right? The Rays are super talented. Anything can happen. It's so early. But I'm thinking about jumping back in with the Blue Jays at plus 275. I mean, like, that is just, I mean, is that line telling us something? That's why that one seems it's almost too good to be true.
I think that one's too good to be true. I was going to say, I'm almost looking at the Yankees because I'm getting the Yankees at that plus line there at this point. They haven't had their team fully healthy at all. They've still looked fine. Volpe's just getting going. Judge looks like he's going to be something close to what he was last year. Yes, Stanton's hurt, but at the end of the day, that's a DH that, was not a game changer for you in the regular season. He was in the postseason. And I think, we're going to wait and see on Rodon, who now has a little back thing. But the pitching's only going to get stronger. They're only going to get more and more guys back. I don't hate the value there. I'm worried about the Jays pitching. We've seen the Manoah regression looking pretty real now. Gausman got knocked around the other day. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue, but then you got Barrios. We've talked about Bassett. I think I like your Yankees at that value there, man.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make
it, plus 180?
Plus 180. I think if you're going to make a move, it has to be on the Yankees. One more thing about the Carlos Rodon back thing. It's funny because he's on the IL for an arm thing. It's saying a back thing. And at the beginning, it was like he slept on it wrong, or at least that was a report I heard. And I was like, oh, that doesn't matter. And then in that spring training start, Boone came out, and Boone's like normally a really positive guy. He did not sound happy. Like, it was like, what is happening to our guy who we just signed to this enormous contract? It was an arm thing. Arm felt good. He's making a rehab start. Now it's a back thing. Like, well, come on. Yeah, right? I mean, I don't blame Boone. It's like, what's going on? Everyone we sign, everyone we trade for, we talk about the litany of bullpen guys going down, then Stanton goes down, then Rodon goes down, and then Boone suffers the blame when the Yankees aren't at their peak come playoff time. Like, Yankee fans totally forget. I mean, probably not Yankee fans, but I think the greater good of baseball fans, like DJ LeMahieu wasn't in the playoffs last year. Like, they had a lot of injuries to that team, and then they got swept by the Astros, and everybody's calling for Boone's job. Like, it's a lot of pressure on manager Aaron Boone if none of the players that Brian Cashman got for you are playing.
And I think he's going to get guys back slowly but surely, and I think that helps. I totally agree with you. My favorite pick to end this segment here is, I think it's the Minnesota Twins to win the division. I know the value's not insane.
That's my only thing. The value, it's like minus now, and they're doing well. Like, this is what I looked at. I was like, well, the Rays are plus 130 and the Twins are minus 115. I'm like, minus 115, because also 2 days ago they were plus 115. Guardians just lost a doubleheader and now they're minus 115. Like, that's such an overreaction.
I agree. I really feel good. I really feel good about this pitching staff. That was the big question. Then they're only going to get better offensively. They're getting Royce Lewis back. They're getting some other guys back in the coming months. They haven't had Jorge Polanco at all so far this season. I mean, Pablo looks like a dude. Joe Ryan, you just talked about stock up on that TikTok video you did.
So
good. Breaking down. He looks awesome. What was that?
No, I'm just saying I love Joe Ryan.
No, and he's awesome. He's awesome. And then, like, Tyler Maui's your 4. Maeda looks pretty damn good as a 5, and then they've got Ober and all this depth. I'm gonna probably take it. Like, I'm probably gonna sprinkle more, because the White Sox you can eliminate. I think you can eliminate the White Sox. It's really just Twins versus Guardians. And the Guardians lost McKenzie. Offense looks a little bit shaky to start the year. I kind of like the Twins at even minus 115. I wouldn't take it any later than that, though, or any worse than that in terms of the value.
So I have a future on the Guardians to win the division at plus 125. And I was thinking, because I do think it's going to be down to the wire in this division with these two teams, because I love them both. I'm almost thinking what I kind of want to do is wait for the Twins to go on like a 3-game losing streak. Like, right now they're losing against Boston. It's 1-0 in the second, but these lines just switch all the time. So I'm like, I might just grab both at plus money. And like, no matter what, like, I'm going to win money, because if you bet a plus and then another plus at the same unit, like, you're going to make profit. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And I'll be sending those to my subscribers when I do so. I'm not totally sure yet. I want to kind of wait because it's so early. But again, use the King of Sportsbooks. All these lines are available. So if you're hearing lines that you want to take, you can get some free money by using code JBFans. Let's get back to the mailbag questions. Another really good one. And this one I grabbed because I was like, I just want to ask Aram about this one. I think we all agree that both teams benefited from the Gallen Jazz Chisholm trade. That was Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm. But on a neutral franchise, which player would you rather have? That was asked by at Nats eventually, which is a great their name Nats. Yeah, eventually. I agree.
Eventually.
That was him on Twitter. Go over the trade, kind of what happened, and then we'll answer who we'd rather have.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Zach Gallen originally came over in that package with Sandy Alcantara, Magneuris Sierra, and Dan Castano for Marcell Ozuna from the Cardinals. That's a rare occasion of the Cardinals giving up a lot there. And I don't think they thought Sandy would become Sandy, and definitely didn't think Gallen would become Gallen. He was a pitchability over stuff guy. Something just really clicked with Gallen. The story was that he got stung by a bee and like that was his joke, and he saw his velo tick up in spring training, so they called him Bee Man. Like it just something happened there, and he saw this uptick. And in his first handful of starts with the Marlins, he was unbelievable. I think the Marlins thought like, okay, maybe this isn't sustainable. We'll have a ton of pitching. Let's cash this in. So they trade him for Jazz Chisholm, who at the time was kind of struggling a little bit in Double-A, but showing big power and stealing bags and looked really, really dynamic. And so they kind of make that trade. And Jazz eventually makes his way up. Gallen obviously does what he has been doing for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I think both teams are happy. I think for the Marlins perspective, we're talking neutral franchise, so we got to remove this aspect of it. But the Marlins have their most marketable player in a long time, and that goes a long way for that franchise beyond what we see on the field. From a pure baseball perspective, you have to look at it this way, right? We wouldn't be putting him in center. That's first of all. So if I'm a neutral franchise that just acquired Jazz Chisholm for Zach Gallen,
last point.
I'm not putting him in center fucking field.
He's a second baseman.
He's a second baseman. Maybe I try him at short even, but I'm probably playing him at second. So that's what he's an all-star second baseman.
Yes, he is.
That's number one. So that's number one. The second thing is, how sold are you on this Zach Gallen? Because now he's following up what was a breakout year last year. I know he showed flashes of being fantastic. There's been some concerns about his elbow and health, but he went 184 innings last year to 254. Realistically, that is probably more valuable if he sustains that. To start this year, he's been pretty damn good. I think you got to kind of ignore the slow start from Jazz. He's already heating up. I think he's had a great game as we're recording this, had a great game the day before that. I think he's going to be something between what we saw in the first half last year and obviously what we're seeing right now, which is, well above average, regular, borderline all-star, 25 years old, power hitting shortstop, second baseman that can go 20-20. I think I'd rather have Gallen though. Like that's just the reality of it.
At the end of the day, and I'm going to simplify this down and, we can, go over the margins and see truly, age, contract, all that kind of stuff. Starting pitching wins championships. Yeah. I'll say that till the day I die. When I bet on an individual game, what do you look at first? The starting pitcher. It matters so much in Major League Baseball. The starting pitcher, I think, is the most valuable asset in all of baseball. You could argue that the shortstop or the catcher might be, maybe this Gold Glove center fielder. It's the starter. Like, even if Jazz was, I don't know, like, let's talk about some Major League Baseball players who, like, position players who you'd rather have over a guy like Zach Gallen. I think of who on the Cardinals, where, we keep bringing them up, who on the Cardinals would you take over Zach Gallen, right? Like,
Arenado, Goldie. I mean, but I see what you're saying. Like, would I rather have Tommy Edman or Zach Gallen? Zach Gallen.
Yeah. I mean,
even looking at the second base position as a whole, the whole league, would you rather have, there's a few guys. Obviously, I'd rather have Altuve. Obviously, I'd rather have.
Would you rather have Altuve than Gallen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andres Gimenez. I'd rather have Andres Gimenez, I think.
Would you?
A 6-WAR position player?
Yeah.
Jeff McNeil. I'd rather have Jeff
Gallen than McNeil.
Jeff McNeil plays every day. Like, I do think that pitching's super valuable, but I think that's where I draw the line pretty much, though.
Yeah.
Like
and
Marcus
it's not
Semien,
on
maybe.
Jazz. It's not on Jazz.
Yeah, it's nothing on Jazz, but it's second baseman. If we go shortstop, I could list you a ton of shortstops I'd rather have, but it's second base.
maybe I'm so like I love pitching so much that I'm like, I don't know if I'd rather have Andres Gimenez than Gallen. Like I think if you have a guy who looks like an ace, and it's not even that he looks like he's pitching like an ace, pitched like an ace last year and is already off to a good start. Had a rough go in the first couple starts because his velo is down, then it ticked up, and now he just looks unbelievable. He looks unhittable. Like
Yeah.
against the Marlins offense, like we joke about the Marlins offense, they've been great this year. Like
Yeah.
Loki, very good
I
this year.
think
And
I think it's more my concern about like the sustainability of Zach
that's fair.
Gallen.
That's fair. I'm more thinking about starting pitchers as a whole and not looking at
Oh,
Zach.
I mean, if it's a true ace, fuck Andres Gimenez. But
Yeah,
like, how sure are you that Zach Gallen's going to continue this? He's a really interesting case.
he
Like
is.
he when his command is really impressive, and that's what's really kind of helped him here. But I don't know, like you talked about the velo being down. It's a little sporadic. He's a little bit of that like makes me nervous with the arm kind of guy. It's a tough one. Regardless, the answer is I would rather have Gallen than Jazz because you could trade Gallen for more than Jazz, I think, at this point, especially with the control and where he's at. So while both teams did well, I don't think the Marlins would undo it because of what Jazz means to their franchise now in terms of just having a bat that they can't mess up and having the marketability there. Neutral franchise, give me Zach Gallen, right? Like, give me the frontline guy. Even if he's closer to a 2 or 3, that's still extremely valuable to your point. I'd rather have Gallen.
The way you talk about the Marlins is going to make me laugh for the rest of my life. Like a bat they can't mess up. Like that is just going to make me laugh forever. How about a bat that at least this person thinks his own team is messing up? Question number 6. Spencer Torkelson is off to a really bad start for the Detroit Tigers. His on-base percentage is barely over 200. Are we out on him officially? Is he maybe a change of scenery guy? Not ruling out Detroit's development being a big part of the problem. Asked by Matt Alec Gold on Twitter.
I'll let you start on this one. What do you think?
How old is he? 23, 24?
23 years, 7 months, 23 days.
How can I give up on a guy like that who at Arizona State I thought was a freaking missile? This guy was one of the best college hitters
ever
in the last half decade. I mean, it was just every single day. Like we talk about Dylan Cruz, right? We talk about Tommy Tanks at LSU, just more LSU guys. Jack Caglione with Florida, Wyatt Langford, the kid at UNC. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name right now. Who's the kid at UNC?
Honey, is it?
Yeah, Vance Honeycutt. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot his name because he's a freak of nature. But these guys are all great college players. Like that guy, like Dylan Cruz, who's the can't miss guy, that was Torque at ASU. Yeah. Just like it didn't matter if he could never play a position because he's going to hit 40 bombs. Yeah. I just think he's off to a slow start. And I know it's crazy. Like Jeremy Pena is 2 years older than him. Right? It took him a little while. He might just be a little bit of a late bloomer.
He broke Barry Bonds' freshman home run record at Arizona State with 25.
I just, it's so hard to say. But the thing is, what's so tough about this question and why I know he's asking it is because it's been horrible. It's not just been ups and downs. There have been no ups. It's just been a steady, bad batch of baseball from Spencer Torkelson. And you could say, all right, year 1, throw it out the window. It hasn't gotten good this year, and he's not really doing much anyway. So it's a really tough question because there's a part of me that says, oh, don't worry about it at all. But I've watched Tigers games because I freaking bet on them all the time. I even tweeted out I'm drunk on Tigers money line.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good, Aram. It does not look good.
I do wonder too how much being a young power hitter and being thrusted into Comerica Park where your power goes to die, how much that pressure kind of mounts on you as a young hitter. We kind of saw it with Riley Green in the early going, who also was his can't miss of a bat. He's starting to get better and get rolling here too and homer today.
He's hitting like 250. I feel like he grounds out every at bat.
But that's the frustrating part too.
He's starting to get going. He is.
But that was like a can't miss bat as well. So the 2 can't miss bats are missing right now. Like that's scary. I do think Comerica like has that mental impact on some young hitters, especially power guys. But what stands out to me, especially this year, is how aggressive Spencer Torkelson has been. 34% chase rate, small sample, but it's early. 53% swing rate is way too high. He's just trying to do too much. He's walked once because he's swinging at everything. And like, that's not how Spencer Torkelson was successful. That's not how he got to where he is. He walked, he was patient, he crushed mistakes, and he's just a good, well-rounded hitter. That's not who we're seeing. So I do feel like he is encroaching on the change of scenery candidate area. I still don't think, like, if Jared Kelenic could figure it out, which it looks like he is, Spencer Torkelson can figure it out. But it is getting a little bit alarming here. When you have a guy that's swinging right now at 62% of fastballs, 62% of fastballs he's swinging at. That tells me either one, he's just trying to do too much, which is, I think, part of the answer. Two, he doesn't want anything to do with breaking balls. So every fastball he sees, he's swinging. He's like, I'm jumping on this one. So he just doesn't seem to feel right. And the Tigers' development is among the worst. They have a new guy at the helm here in Scott Harris, who I do believe in. I think you're seeing the difference, but I don't know if that's kind of made its way to Torque yet. It's also a team that seems like it has some issues in the clubhouse. I mean, we saw AJ Hinch just come out and hang out the vets to dry, hang out everybody to dry. And sometimes that stuff's contagious. I'm not saying Torque's cooked, but I am starting to wonder if it's going to happen in Detroit.
That's fair. Will it happen in Detroit? But Tigers fans, I can't give up on him. I just can't. He was too special in college. He was such a good talent. Like, I don't know.
He's been good in the minor leagues. He hit a 935 OPS in between high A, double A, and triple A in 2021.
I'm so glad you brought up Kelenic, because we're seeing what Kelenic can do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Spencer Torkelson was a better offensive prospect than he was.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, people would have, and until Kelenic was at the very, very end, and even then, I still think people would have said Torque's a safer offensive prospect.
There you go. So we aren't giving up hope yet.
Breathe. It's gonna be okay. It's 14 games. It's a slow start to this year. It's cold. I think he'll be fine.
It's cold. It is cold. And he's a warm weather guy. Yeah, our last question, and it was so funny. We had 7 Orioles questions, and they were all surrounding the same thing. So I apologize we didn't credit you, but there was so many that I'm just like, all right, let's just tackle this.
Yeah, you put dash everyone.
Yeah, dash everyone, because it was the teams that asked the most questions, Cardinals and Orioles almost doubled the Cardinals, and the Cardinals tripled every other team. So, tons of Orioles questions. Basically, this is what it is. What do they do with the litany of infield prospects, and which pitcher should they get?
Okay. So, let me start with, I think this is the beginning. This is the first domino, and I'll start with the question back to you. Are you buying what Jorge Mateo is selling? I know you guys talked about it the other episode. Are you buying it? Because that's the first step of this entire thing that we have to go through here.
Like, kind of. I am. Like, he's so dynamic, because even if he's not hitting, it's not like, oh, he's a hole at shortstop or he's not running. He's a demon on the base pass. I use that with Jack, that word. It's like there are a couple of demons.
He's going to steal 50 bags this year. He's going to steal 50 bags.
And he's great defensively. So even if he doesn't hit, he provides value. Yep. And he's hitting. And he looks good. And it's not like this guy came out of nowhere. He was a good prospect, and he's really developing. This is an incredibly tough situation, but it's a good situation to be in if you're an Orioles.
Trouble in paradise.
Trouble in paradise. And then, of course, Adam Frazier's just getting ABs. And you know, an Orioles fan put a curse on me? When Adam Frazier was doing well, he was like, if you don't give Adam Frazier his praise, we're putting the Adam Frazier curse on you. I was afraid I'm going to start losing bets. They put a curse on me, Arm, because I wouldn't apologize.
That's crazy.
For Adam Frazier.
That's pretty funny. I mean, dude, so Mateo, full win already, a 1.0 F4 through 14 games. You mentioned the defense. His strikeout rate's down 10% to start the year. And look, I don't know if that part's sustainable, but I do think that the swing rate being down is a legitimate alteration in his approach. Him realizing, okay, I need to stop swinging at everything. And I can still be that get on base guy. And he is, and he's really been setting the table and making a difference. He's going to steal 50 bags, and he's going to play elite defense at short. You're not moving that guy from shortstop unless he hits a damn wall. So what do you do with the other guys? You've got Joey Ortiz, who's elite defensively as well. A really good bat to ball guy in AAA. Very impressive prospect. You've got Connor Norby, who's limited to second base more so, but hit 27 homers last year. Absolutely rakes. Then you got Jordan Westberg, who can play all over, fast, above average power, average or better hitter. All those guys rake and are really interesting. The question is, do you want to move those guys? Because at the end of the day, like they've tried Westberg a little bit in the outfield. He could potentially play left. I don't know what they can do with Norby and Ortiz. A lot of Ortiz's value comes from short. I know they like Ortiz more than Westberg, from what I understand. Like you could get a lot of players with those with those prospects. You could get a lot. But do you trade just to trade? No. What pitchers are going to be available that have a ton of control that make it worth it? I don't know either. Like that's the interesting part. Like the Orioles, you don't want to just give up an asset. I know it's a surplus, but it's a valuable asset just to do it. But how long can you sit on those guys? Because several of them are going to be kind of bored in the minor leagues at a certain point. Specifically, Joey Ortiz, as he continues to get going here, like that guy's going to be ready to go. But I could see them just stashing them in triple all year.
There is one name who I keep thinking about. Is Shane Bieber available?
And they're trying to win. They're trying to win the division.
I know they're trying to win the division, but they're also the Guardians, right? The Guardians have been prone to make, they haven't been prone to, I guess, make big moves.
They also have a billion infield prospects too.
Yeah, they do. Maybe that's a bad idea. I'm just thinking about who are aces. Like I'm grasping at straws here. I'm trying to make some sort of mock trade. Like who's a great pitcher who's worthy of all of these incredible infield prospects? Because it's like, yeah, you could trade like a Jordan Westberg and get a 3, and like I don't know how much that helps. I'm thinking about like a game-changing trade. Who would it be? So I'm just like, yeah, you could tear down Shane Bieber, and you're probably right. But it's like, then who, I guess.
So I got a team for you. The San Francisco Giants needed. If they didn't extend Logan Webb, that would have been the perfect example.
They did. Yeah.
They did. The thing is they need a shortstop in the worst way. They're moving their third base prospect right now to shortstop in Casey Schmidt. Like Logan Webb would have been the perfect example. But now he's not available, most likely. I don't know if there's anything out there for them, for those guys. Like that's the problem. So what do you do? And that's the most fascinating aspect of it. I don't know if it's a prospect for prospect deal that they could eventually make. I don't know if it's something else, but it seems like right now the only way that they're going to be able to upgrade the pitching is through short rentals, and you're not trading any of those guys for short rentals. So I know it's a common question, but that's kind of part of the reason why we haven't really seen anything happen. Pablo Lopez was the guy to go try to do it for, but the Marlins wanted big league talent, so that wasn't going to line up. And I don't know if there's really any other teams. Maybe the Braves. Like maybe you could work out a deal if the Braves feel better about, what they've got going on pitching wise. Maybe a Bryce Elder for one of those guys.
Where do you put them? You got Vaughn Grissom and Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley and Matt Olson. Here was my thinking. This won't happen, but we're just talking. What would it take for Kyle Harrison from the Giants? What would it take for Max Meyer from the Marlins? Right? Teams with prospects who need offense, like prospect for prospect deals. Again, it won't happen. I don't know why it doesn't. Like teams with
should happen more
prospects in one position with other teams that have a ton of prospects, and that like make a deal help both sides. So I'm spitballing here.
That's the best scenario, I think, is to do a prospect for prospect deal. The problem is I know more about my prospect. You know more about your prospect. And we're always going to be wary about swapping him. Why does he want to trade me his prospect?
That's why it doesn't happen. It's a great point.
So that's why it doesn't. But there could be a scenario where that does happen. I would do like a Max Meyer for Connor Norby in 2 seconds. I would do Max Meyer for Jordan Westberg in 2 seconds. I would do Max Meyer for any of those guys in 2 seconds. And I think there's teams out there with some pitching talent that would consider doing that. Kyle Harrison's off to a bit of a slow start. Maybe the Giants consider it. That might be the best way to do it for the Orioles, is prospect for prospect. And I've read about teams considering that through the offseason. Nothing materialized with some other teams that were considering prospect for prospect. But I think the Orioles might be the team that's willing to do that. And I think it would be a really smart thing to do where they're at in the rebuild.
And that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. That was the mailbag. all of the questions. We talked about division odds. Again, we are sponsored by the King of Sportsbooks in BetMGM. Use code JBFans. You wager $10 on any MLB game, and you get $100 in bonus bets. Cardinals fans, think about plus 160. Blue Jays fans, if you think we're nuts and you think the Rays and the Yankees suck, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see, plus 275. You got all the value. Get after it. Twins, Guardians, and of course, all the other divisions. The best way to support this podcast is to get yourself some Just Baseball merch that is in the episode description. And if you don't want to spend a dime, you don't want to gamble, no worries at all. If you could just rate this podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the comment button on anything that we talked about. Let us know and hit that subscribe button. Arm, anything else before we say goodbye?
That's it. Definitely look out for that Mason Miller feature piece. I think you guys will enjoy that. But other than that, I'm good.
And with that, thank you, everybody.